Well, an announcement today by the White House that the U.S. will be sending 100 combat troops into Central Africa in the coming days. They'll be tasked with training and advising forces battling the Ugandan Lord's Resistance Army rebels. Those rebels are said to be, among other things, murderers, kidnappers, and rapists. They also plan to remove the head of the army on the battlefield, Joseph Kony. And we want to talk more about this and shed some light on what may be behind this. To help me do that, I'm joined now by Robert Naiman of Just Foreign Policy. Hey there, Robert. You know, from what I understand, these are military advisors, as they're called. They'll be headed to Uganda, South Sudan, the Central African Republic, and Congo. Leaders that have been in power, though, for decades, these same leaders who they're now going to fight. Why Africa? Why now?
Well, first of all, this is a long-standing policy, the U.S. policy of opposition to the Lord's Resistance Army. And I think it's worth bearing in mind, of course, the U.S. has got a lot of military conflicts going on in a lot of places. But in this case, it's not violating international law. It's not sending troops into Uganda against the will of the government of Uganda. It's in cooperation with the government of Uganda. And it's at least not blatantly contradicting U.S. law, because there's already existing U.S. law that says that the U.S. should combat the Lord's Resistance Army, and the president invoked that law in his letter to Speaker Boehner.
But Robert, if it's always been a policy of the U.S., what about the timing? Why now?
Well, the claim is two things. The claim of the administration is that which appears to be correct, is that the existing efforts have not been sufficient, and so those efforts need to be ramped up. And it's worth noting that this is also what human rights groups have been saying. In fact, Human Rights Watch praised the administration, said this is exactly what we've been pushing for, and we're not calling for the U.S. to be directly involved in combat, and the president has said U.S. troops aren't going to be involved directly in combat. They're going to be advising. They will only be involved in combat if they're attacked and it's necessary for self-defense.
I mean, all those things aside, whether or not it's legal, you mentioned the U.S. Has its hands full right now in a couple other military conflicts, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya. This could potentially cost a whole lot of money. I mean, how do you think the president can justify that right now?
Well, it's important to have a sense of scale. The United States is sending 100 advisors to Uganda. The United States has 100,000 troops in Afghanistan. It's got 41,000 troops in Iraq. In the context of the U.S. military budget, this is a comma. And I would rather see 10 interventions like this and see the U.S. troops come out of Iraq by December, as was promised, as is in the agreement, to see the U.S. troops come out of Afghanistan by 2014 or sooner, as people around the world are expecting. So I wouldn't put it on the same plane as these other interventions where the U.S. is, involved in directly killing, and where it's very clear that, people in Iraq, people in Afghanistan don't want the U.S. troops.
Well, I want to talk about something else going on in some of these countries around Africa, and that is major economic development on the part of China. I'm wondering, should we make any connection between what's going on with China, its development projects, and this new plan on the part of the Obama administration?
Well, the United States always takes into account, of course, what's going on in the region and what its interests are. And we saw, for example, in the case of the intervention in Libya, there was a long history of struggle where the United States created this command for Africa, AFRICOM, and then they couldn't base it anywhere in the region because it was so controversial. And then after the intervention in Libya, the U.S. military officials were saying, see, this proves we need to have a military capability in Africa. So it's always true that the military likes all other things being equal, it likes to intervene. It likes to have opportunities to intervene if it thinks that they're going to be successful and prove to Congress, you should fund the military and build relations with countries and saying, see, you should have a good relationship with us. Look how useful it is to have us as friends. Of course, that's always true.
All right, Robert Naiman, Policy Director of Just Foreign Policy.